Headmaster, Dr. McEwen, Deputy Headmaster, Mr. Davies, invited guests, staff, and my fellow students of the Hutchins School. As I first started writing this speech, I was in isolation at the end of last term after my older brother, Archie, an old boy to the school, tested positive for COVID, and I was deemed a close contact. I was pretty angry about it because not only would I have to sit inside for 7 days, but I was going to miss my last ever athletics carnival, a bunch of important meetings, and my game of footy, which was on the weekend. I was also to miss Mr. Killian's end of unit sports science test, which I wasn't too mad about. But as I was sitting there in ISO, unhappy and dwelling on all these important things I was going to miss, I thought to myself, hold on, you know what? It really isn't that bad. I thought about how angry I had been at my brother for ruining those plans. But then I started to think about all the people who have lost their brothers from the virus. All the people who have lost their friends, their parents, their grandparents, and other family members from this virus. As terrible as it was, I imagined losing my brother, and I couldn't think of anything worse. What I was first seeing as a huge inconvenience, which I had blamed him for, suddenly felt like I hadn't given it the seriousness it deserved. Maybe we've all been guilty of this. Once I started to think outside of myself and about others and their experiences, it changed my attitude completely. It is what it is, so get on with it. Control what you can control. Stopping and reminding ourselves to be more positive in our thinking can change our perspective on almost anything. If you dig deep to find the positives in any given situation, I can guarantee you that you will be more successful in what you do, even if things do not always work out so well. It's the experience alone is what helps us grow and learn. Positive thinking is a technique used a lot in the world of elite sports, and as just one example, it allowed professional AFL Stephen Salopek to fight through the hard times of injury during his career. He missed a large chunk of his time in the AFL, but it was his positive mindset which kept him motivated. He said, "Unfortunately, injury is a part of footy, and besides, there are a lot more important things in life. So how can I complain about missing 2 or 3 weeks?" It's that idea that I grabbed on through isolation. And I know I've often caught myself in a negative headspace where I've worried about the impact things have on me, and I've needed to deliberately make the decision to try and change my mindset. To not always think about how tough things are for me in a moment of time, but to think bigger picture. Be empathetic. This idea largely relates to this year's theme of inclusion. When you empathise with other people and their situations, you are more including and considerate of their experiences, their emotions, and their perception on things. It is such a compelling value to have and can be of such great benefit to each of us as individuals. But not enough of us are practicing it every day. Back in 2006, former US President Barack Obama called this an empathy deficit.
Then I think that we're going to have to talk more about the empathy deficit, the ability to put ourselves in somebody else's shoes, to see the world through somebody else's eyes. The mother who can't insure her child, or the steel worker who's been laid off, the family who lost the entire life they'd built together when the storm came to town. An empathy deficit. When we start thinking like this, when we choose to broaden the ambit of our concern and empathize with the plight of others, whether they are close friends or distant strangers, it becomes harder not to act. It becomes harder not to help.
I want to tell you a story of my childhood which taught me a great lesson and broadened my perspective on the world. Back in 2013, my parents were generous enough to take my brother and I on a 6-month trip around Australia in a pop-up caravan and Land Cruiser. We were roughly halfway up the west coast of Australia at a place called Ningaloo Station, where we were camping on the beach, which bordered a huge farm that held thousands of cattle. At this stage of the trip, Archie and myself were fighting about anything and everything. Whether it was the washing up, how much arm room we each had in the back seat, or who got the biggest plate at dinner time. It came to the point where Mum and Dad had had enough, and one night they got the DVD player out and put on a movie, just for some peace and quiet. That movie was called Slumdog Millionaire, a film based on a true story about a young man's childhood living in the slums of India, representing a large number of India's population. Young Malik had an unimaginable upbringing, where he and his brother were forced to run away from the slums after his mum was killed in front of their eyes due to religious conflicts. Soon after, while living in the rubbish dumps of India, they were captured by begging traders, where they witnessed their friends being blinded by acid in order to be given more money while begging on the streets, and they were forced to find their own means of survival in the cruel world that they lived in. Now, I'm not sure if Mum and Dad had just wanted us to stop the bickering, or whether they knew there was a deeper lesson to be had if we really watched and heard the story of Malik and his brother. We were on a once-in-a-lifetime trip with each other in relative luxury comparatively. We have such an incredible quality of life. The movie opened our eyes and made us realise how lucky we were compared to so many less fortunate people out there. It made us feel selfish in the way we were behaving, and from there on in, we made the effort to ensure our attitude was flawless, without any arguments about who was to do the washing up. The movie influenced me to empathise for the thousands of kids out there who barely have means to pen and paper for their own education. I mean, how lucky are we to go to this amazing school with the endless opportunities it holds? This school has given me a lot, and the friendships I've created and the memories I've made here at school will stay with me forever, and I will be forever grateful for them. I want to take the opportunity to thank anyone and everyone who has made any impact on my time here over the last 6 years. And to all you younger boys, make the most of your time here at school, because it does fly by pretty quick. Empathy can come naturally in lots of situations and for many people. But sometimes it doesn't, and not everyone finds it easy. So I encourage you to practice it. Don't assume you know what someone is going through or what they've experienced. Be empathetic. Like Barack Obama said, walk in someone else's shoes. See things through their eyes rather than throwing judgment someone's way, or as Archie copped from me during isolation, a bit of resentment too. Allow empathy to drive positive thinking, because you will become a happier and more powerful person through it. Thank you.